Yeah. All righty. Well, folks, we Jay Baba, and welcome once again to a Saturday treat of December, our December Saturdays with Cathy Riley, who is going through her husband Tom's book, More Light, where which I will show you in a minute. We're we will hear now chapters 5 and 6. Cathy will tell us a bit about those chapters, uh, and we'll have some. We have some snippets. She's calling them snippets of videos from Tom talking in earlier days at the center. So those will be fun. So, all right, Cathy, I'll give it to you and call up the cover.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you, Betty. Thank you for helping with these wonderful video Zooms, which, mean a lot to me. And I'm sure Tom is cavorting wherever he is, doing some Irish little twinkle, twinkle, twinkle. So just those of you who haven't seen the cover, The More Light, An Artist's Life with Meher Baba, is going to really be a beautiful book. And looks like there's Tom and Baba.
Let's see, Ruthie, I may need to be host. I'm not, my screen sharing is not happening.
And so, shall I wait, Betty? Do you want me
to? Why don't you can, if you don't mind, you can go ahead and start no, don't wait for me. I'm not sure what's happening.
There you go, honey. You're host. Make me co-host, please.
Okay. Yeah.
Hostesses with the mostesses.
All right, let's see about this.
So we have divided Tom's book into 4 parts for these 4 Tom Riley book Zoom sessions, and chapters 1 and 2 have been reveled in, and 3 and 4. And today we're going to talk about chapters 5 and 6. So chapter 5 is the period after Tom and his first wife Yvonne met Baba in Myrtle Beach in 58. So it goes from, end of 58 through 62 before the East-West gathering. That is chapter 5. Chapter 6 is the East-West gathering. So we'll be focusing on that period of Tom's life today. And those of you who have been on these sessions before know that just 2 and 3 months before Tom passed, Greg Butler came over and we recorded myself and Tom talking about the photos in the book, and Greg has helped put together different parts, and this is part 3, which we would like to share with you today to start this program. So thanks so much for coming.
All right, so we'll see. Sorry, I will come up with the cover. Ruthie, you need to make me co-host after you start the thing. Yeah.
And here you are back in Woodstock with your young family. So since Damien was born in 61, maybe this could have been, I'm thinking later 61 or early 62. And Christina, probably your daughter Christina, you and Yvonne's daughter, she was 4 years older. So Christina was, maybe 4.5, 5.
4.5.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 drawings, one of Yvonne here and myself.
And this is a photo that on the back of it, it says it's the passport photo for the East-West gathering. And of course, the amazing story that transpired before leaving New York was that
The Russian pamphlet.
so that's a good story because Adele Walken called you up
and said, could I deliver this to her friends?
But the surprise was that when Adele invited you to lunch, she said, Tom, I had a dream. Yeah, it was a vision. She said, I had a dream. It was almost a vision that you would meet some Russian people. You thought when Adele said, I know you will meet some Russians, so I had it printed up.
Mm-hmm.
And you thought to yourself,
how could she possibly know?
You were very dubious about it. But of course, she handed you this box of these pamphlets. Here's the cover. And inside was a beautiful picture of Baba with Meher Baba written in Russian below. When she handed you the pamphlets inside this box, you thought, well, I can't say no. So you said, of course, Adele.
Mm-hmm.
And very long story, very short, who did you come upon in Spain on your way to India? A Russian couple at a pension. And when they answered the door, they first said, welcome in Spanish, and you said, habla usted inglés? And they started to speak English with a Russian accent.
With the Russian accent.
Yes, what did they say?
I remember that now.
Yes, tell us about it. Tell us a little about it.
I don't recall exactly what transpired.
Yes, because
verbally.
What happened was you found out that they knew people It seems there's a little out of sync going on with the video. Is everybody experiencing that? Or is it?
We've lost it. We've lost the video.
I turned it off because Cathy's thinking we're out of sync here.
Are the voices going with the video?
So far they were until it was turned off, I thought.
Oh, you
Seemed
were
okay to me
Oh,
too.
sorry.
I'm so
All right.
sorry.
Well,
Okay,
let's
yeah.
let's go back then.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Here we go. Just make sure I get the right thing here. I'm gonna just
Before leaving New York was that
The Russian pamphlet.
so that's a good story because Adele Walken called you up
and said, could I deliver this to her friends?
But the surprise was that when Adele invited you to lunch, she said, Tom, I had a dream. Yeah, it was a vision. She said, I had a dream. It was almost a vision that you would meet some Russian people. You thought when Adele said, I know you will meet some Russians, so I had it printed up.
made you cover.
And you thought to yourself,
how could she possibly know?
you were very dubious about it. But of course, she handed you this box of these pamphlets. Here's the cover. And inside was a beautiful picture of Baba with Meher Baba written in Russian below. When she handed you the pamphlets inside this box, you thought, well, I can't say no. So you said, of course, Adele.
Mhm.
And very long story, very short, who did you come upon in Spain on your way to India? A Russian couple at a pension. And when they answered the door, they first said, welcome in Spanish, and you said, habla usted inglés? And they started to speak English with a Russian accent.
Oh, with the Russian accent.
Yes, what did they
I
say?
remember that now.
Yes, tell us about it. Tell us a little
I
about.
don't recall exactly what transpired
Yes, because
verbally.
what happened was you found out that they knew people in Woodstock.
Oh,
Yeah,
who are these people?
Archipenko.
Oh, Archipenko, the sculptor,
Yes, and also Kozlov.
Alexis Kozlov.
Who was he?
He was painter,
Kozlov, painter, not painter.
writer,
Ballet master.
ballet master.
Yeah.
I
Da
did
da.
not know him personally.
No, you didn't, but they did. All these people.
Yes, he was a famous person,
Margaret Krask told you.
but she was ballet mistress.
Yeah. But she had told you that Kozlov was the greatest ballet master who ever lived
Yeah,
years before. So these Russians knew these people in Woodstock.
mhm.
And all at once, you remember this. After you had been talking with them for quite a long time, you remember this. And you remember the pamphlets. And you said, my friend Adele gave me something. I am connected. We are connected to Meher Baba. Of course, you didn't speak with a Russian accent. But they said, what did they say?
Yes, please let us have a look at them.
And the next morning when they came down, what did they say to you? We have been...
Look, did he give me money?
No, he didn't. He gave you love.
Oh,
So this is this is the first photo in chapter 6, a photo of Guru Prasad.
Guru Prasad, the home of the Maharani of Baroda.
Another photo of Guru Prasad is this beautiful photo of the entrance gate. You can see Guru Prasad behind the gates, a very typical Indian scene. And this at night was lit up. Avatar Meher Baba Lovers, East-West Gathering.
Mhm.
So this next photo
Is Yvonne, Christina, and Damien. What year?
and that was 62. So Yvonne
1962.
had given you a photo of the family.
To bring with me.
And when Baba asked about your family,
In India,
mhm,
I fortunately had that photograph in my shirt pocket.
mhm,
I took it out immediately and handed it to Meher Baba. He studied it carefully,
mhm.
pressed it against turned it around his right ear, looked at me again, closed his eyes, opened them, and then presented me with the return of the photograph.
Mm. Such a beautiful photo. So they were there too. Baba was very happily
So very
Smiling.
lovingly receptive.
Okay, so this photo gives a feeling of the immensity of the afternoon sessions under the giant cloth-covered tent area called the Pandal behind Guru Prasad. So all of those in the front, you were saying?
Have come from the United States and mainly from England and Europe.
So the front
And those
rows. Mhm.
further back are from various parts of India and the Far East.
So Easterners in the back and the Westerners in the front. And it's so wonderful to see you in the front row sitting next to Fred,
Fred Winterfeld.
because your great luck of being in the front row was
Being so close to Baba.
because your bus arrived early, often arrived early, so you were able to get
Yeah,
a front row seat.
immediately situate myself in the front to be as close to Baba as possible, to be able to observe him
So that's
closely.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of more of a close-up showing you in one of the front rows.
Younger ones.
And some of the younger folks in the front row and looking out toward the back so that you can see the Indians, the thousands of Indians. Okay, so there was a beautiful rendition, a recitation of a Hafiz poem called Be Not Grieved, which Francis and Mayor Baba collaborated on the translation. It was written that they did collaborate back and forth.
By gesturing.
Yes. And Francis read the poem, recited the poem.
He was exceptional at that. And as well, a marvelous poet.
And after he recited their collaboration of the ghazal Be Not Grieved, you were so moved by the poem, by the Hafiz poem, that you went to Francis and you asked if you could have a copy of the translation.
Oh yes, of the translation of the poem. And he left me and I lost connection with him. But within about 10 minutes, he returned with the entire poem,
which he then
in English, and gave it to me.
And you have said that he asked Baba permission to give it to you.
And Baba immediately agreed.
So you have that paper to this day, this treasured translation from the two of them. So that's a powerful moment. One day at lunchtime, you had asked your Pune hotel host and hostess to pack you a lunch so you could stay at Guru Prasad instead of leaving for lunch. And you were walking down the veranda at Guru Prasad. Darwin called out and said, "Tom, please come with us. We're going to see Baba. Come join us." Baba then said to you something which has stayed with you ever since. You were in front of Baba with Darwin Shaw and Fred Marks, talk about India, going to India, going on pilgrimage, how important it was, came up. And Baba said,
once you have discovered me clearly within yourself, there will be no need for you to return to India.
And then you said Baba went like this.
Baba made an expression with his hands of having diminished or resolved and changed that from an ongoing need.
So you
Dissolved
Mhm.
it.
so you had felt since then not
No urgency to
Mhm.
actuate an internal need to leave for India for the purpose of being with Meher Baba.
Here's another photo of the
Yeah, I'm
Easter.
amongst so many of the men and women from the
Mhm.
West, mainly from America,
Mhm.
who are visible in this photograph. Also women.
Yeah, on the other aisle across, women would sit. And there was a musical concert that a famous Indian singer called Patwardhan was giving at this time. It was a wonderful time to be together with Baba.
Mhm.
Mhm. And then on the fifth morning, I think I remember it was, Baba wanted to have a walk outside of Guru Prasad to have a little photo shoot.
Who was that fellow on the right?
So Lud Dimple to Baba's left and Marvin Campen, I heard his name, to Baba's right. And there you are behind Baba with the mustache, walking out of Guru Prasad. I think Bayram and Mani had wanted to have a movie taken of being with Baba, the Westerners with Baba. But you were all coming out of Guru Prasad for a photo shoot down below. And then here you are with the group going out into the roadway.
Large group of American Baba people.
Mm-hmm. And then Baba had said, this is a motion picture. Everybody should make sure they create some motion. So you see hands raising and everybody was in a happy mood.
Directly in front of the villa.
Mm-hmm. And as you came back into Guru Prasad, you had seen that Lud Dimple was carrying an umbrella over to shield Baba from the sun. And you thought to yourself,
I wish I had the opportunity to shade Meher Baba with the umbrella.
mm-hmm. And just as you thought that, what happened?
Baba indicated to Lud, give the umbrella to Tom.
Mm,
He had been carrying it
mm-hmm.
for that purpose.
Then, as you came out of the sun, of course,
Entering the building.
what were you thinking at that time when you were holding the umbrella?
Difficult to recall.
Feeling fortunate.
Yeah, very blessed
Mm-hmm.
to have the opportunity of such continuous closeness to Baba.
After the East-West gathering, on the 6th of November, Baba invited all to take buses out to Mehrabad and Marazad and tell about who you met in Marazad.
This is one of the advanced souls known as a must. And what was his name?
12 coats.
12 Coats.
Barakoti. And he was just wandering.
Many,
Mhm.
many thin, what would you call them?
Jackets or coats.
Yeah,
And there was a whole
thin articles of clothing.
clothing. So there's a whole interchange with 12 coats and with you all, a few of you who met him, and Adi. That's a very wonderful part of this book, of your autobiography. And those are the photos for chapter 6.
So I would love to continue by reading one of the passages from Tom's book, from the East-West Gathering chapter, which is chapter 6, which we did allude to in that little video clip. So this is the story of going to see Baba when Tom was roaming about in the lunchtime, during lunch when most people had left and Tom had gotten permission and had gotten food, his lunch that he brought with him. And so he was wandering about in Guru Prasad during lunch. On the third day, soon after the conclusion of the morning session, everyone at Guru Prasad left for lunch. Now, I then had so much of the wonderful villa experience all to myself. I knew, of course, that Baba had his quarters in Guru Prasad, which was surprisingly large. I had the opportunity to explore the park-like landscape outside, which seemed to be 2 acres or more. I felt that I was alone here. I didn't encounter anyone in my exploration of the outside. Within the villa again now, I was walking through a large, high corridor with views to the gardens on one side and windows and French doors on the other side. My experience was simply one of exploration. At one point, my hallway was maybe 50 feet from meeting another when all at once 3 Western men appeared, turned the corner, and approached me. They were Joseph Harb, Darwin Shaw, and Fred Marks. We greeted each other with happy smiles, and as they continued to walk, Darwin suddenly stopped and approached me. He said, "We have an appointment to be with Meher Baba now. Come and join us, Tom." I was taken aback, thinking, who is he to invite me? Darwin immediately responded, "This may seem peculiar to you, Tom, but as soon as I observed you walking towards us, I knew I had to approach you and ask you to come be with us." We walked back in the direction from which I had come and passed 3 or 4 closed doors. One of the men then opened a door and we entered the room, which was modest in size. A few simple chairs were in rows facing an armchair. Meher Baba, accompanied by one of his mandali, was seated in this armchair and smiling. Right away, we sat down just before him. He, in no way, seemed surprised at seeing me. Evidently, this gathering occurred as a result of questions that had recently been discussed and required clarification now. I was only an observer. A question put forward from one of these men was focused upon one's need to actuate the longing to experience Baba's presence within oneself. Was it preferable or more beneficial to acquire this experience of longing by being in India? My recollection of Baba's response is the following, quote, "As my presence within you becomes more and more familiar, there will be no need for you to return to India. None." He communicated this emphatically as he moved his hands away from each other repeatedly, as though clearing away an obstructed pathway. I realized then that physical location is not necessary for the revelation of his sacred presence. His reality must be discovered and realized within oneself. That has always meant a lot to Tom, and he actually, personally, because of that interaction, didn't feel particularly drawn to return to India again and again. And after, I think, one more visit that Darwin and Jean did go to India, I think they did not repeatedly go back to India also. So I would love to continue with another reading that Josh McGill would like to add from another chapter 6 snippet, as I like to call them. So thank you, Josh.
Cathy.
Mhm.
All right. In the afternoon of the first day of the gathering at Guru Prasad beneath the pandal, Baba was seated in front of all of us, the Easterners and the Westerners. The sky above was mostly blue with a few light clouds. Baba stood. A microphone was placed in front of Erich, who was quiet. Baba's message was the following: in the event it rains, stay where you are. Don't leave your seats. People glanced at one another with expressions of confusion and surprise because the sky above was bright and lovely. My chair was quite near Baba, and I felt so blessed for this closeness to him. Sitting right next to me was Fred March from England. About a half hour into the occasion, the sky began to undergo a transformation. Large, dark clouds were ominously gathering, covering the blue and the brightness. Then began the sound of mild thunder. Darkness increased, and rain suddenly began with intensity. Everything that Baba had said about not moving was instantly forgotten. In a moment, many began to seek protection and find cover. They knocked over chairs, carelessly trampling over the earth, which was now turning to mud. Fred and I remained in our chairs, amazed at what was taking place. Fred looked at me, astounded, and said, "Didn't they hear what he had said?" After the rain abated, Baba indicated that in his love, he had purified the sanskaras of everyone present. Through this experience of wondrous light and brightness, having been transformed into the natural chaos of dark, thunderous clouds and rain, an alteration in sanskara creation had occurred. Now a release toward purification and freedom had been initiated within each one of us. What an unimaginable level of unbinding change. Thus a new beginning would be available. As Baba said this, I thought, how could that possibly be? Were this true, we would encounter an experience of freedom on unparalleled levels. How could that truly become a reality for us? The sanskaric impressions, which have manifested what we are and which have created an illusory reality, are suddenly altered into a pure beginning in which we experience a flawless now. I was perplexed. Baba further stated that we were henceforth responsible for the actuation and control of all sanskaras in our lives. How to resolve within oneself such a challenge? How many are fully prepared to eliminate these impressions that bind through the practice of selflessness and purity? Baba wants us to take all the sanskaras that have limited consciousness and dwell upon their submission and their serious alteration. That is our mission. We then have the opportunity, since our old impressions have been cleansed, to strive to actuate the practice of limitation and control. Then our present and future impressions will have become wondrously recreated.
Thank you so much. That's so many of us have heard the, or read the story about the rain on the first afternoon, but what Baba said about purifying everyone's impressions is something I think is not so known, and I think it's fascinating to try to imagine Baba saying that to you, to one. Very powerful. Thank you, Josh. That was very appreciated. And we have some little movie snippets from the Meher Center collection that we'd like to finalize this gathering with. Hope you enjoy them.
Yes, I was 2.5 weeks early, so I was planning. Next to the hotel, there was a wilderness, a forested wilderness. Seems strange in a place like Pune, but nevertheless it was. But there was a road that went into this wilderness, and at the end of the road, there was a cul-de-sac and a large post office. So I had a couple of letters I had to mail. So I was planning on, walking into this road and into the post office. When I'm just about to do that, someone knocks at the door, and it's one of the hotel people saying that there's an individual who wants to see me out in the lobby. So I went out, and who is it but Meherji? And this is what he says. What are you doing today, Tom? I said, well, I'm about to walk over into the post office. He said, oh, I'd love to join you. I said, wonderful. So we began our walk down the street and then into this dirt gravel road going far into the post office. So we're walking along, getting acquainted and communicating, and ahead of me, it's very hilly, full of undulating landscape with lots of trees and hollow places and like caverns and what would you call it? Swales. And we're walking along, talking, and I look ahead, and down in one of these swales is an individual sitting there all by himself. And he's wearing simple cotton clothing. And as we get a little closer, I notice that he's muttering to himself and gesturing. And he's talking, like he's talking to somebody, but there's nobody there but him. And we stop, and I said, who is that man? And Meherji very immediately says, oh, he is a must. He is a must on the very highest regions of the fifth plane of consciousness. Baba has contacted him several times. I said, isn't that amazing? He looks, I mean, his clothing looks so white and clean. And yes, Baba has appointed people to take care of him. They feed him, they shave him, they clothe him. But he is very highly elevated on the fifth plane of consciousness. And I said, what's he doing, muttering and gesturing? He says, he's communicating with his beloved to take away all of his impressions, to rid himself of everything that stands in the way of his liberation. I said, oh, isn't that amazing? So he fascinated me. And in my pocket, I had an old Muslim coin because when I arrived at the Pune Hotel, the first question I asked the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Billamoria, do you know anyone who sells ancient artifacts? Oh yes, they said, yes, we do, the Karachi wala, he sells it, that's what he does. And I said, please get in touch with him and send him over to see me. I'd like to see what he has to sell. Yes. So the very next day, the Karachi wala arrived. He's a very overweight Parsi guy, and he's got 2 huge sacks, and he shows me all these treasures, and I am stunned and astounded at the little bit of money he's asking for these ancient, beautiful little sculptures, metal things, little paintings, all kinds of fascinating art forms. And I realized, God in heaven, this is a gift. This is amazing. And so over the course of time, I bought many things from him. And actually, I spent about $600 throughout my time there in India, just from the Karachi wala alone. And one of the things I just happened to buy was this ancient, 400, 500-year-old silver coin. I just happened to have it in my pocket. So when I saw the bust muttering and gesturing and down in the hollow, I took the coin, and my impulse was to go down and give him the coin, connect with him. So Maharji saw what I was about to do, and he says, oh, don't waste your time. He will only take the coin and he will only throw it away. Don't bother. And I disregarded what Maharji said, and I walked down the steep through the trees and so on, the rocks, and there he was at the bottom. And when I reached him, he stopped muttering and gesturing and looked up at me, and I was amazed at the purity of his eyes and his skin. He was a man of about, I'd say, maybe 45 or so, but like he looked pure. And the eyes looked right at me with this innocence. And I took the coin and handed him the coin like this. And he looked at it and looked at me, closed his eyes for a moment and opened them again, and then took the coin and studied it very carefully all over, and closed his eyes again, and then tucked it inside of his shirt and touched it to his head. Yeah, thank you. Touched it to his head like this and looked at me right in the eyes and tucked it here, put it in, and then went into a silent state and then began, and I walked back up the hill, and Maharji said, you are very blessed, very blessed. I was convinced he would throw it away. Isn't that amazing? During these, in the evening and before we went to Guru Prasad, there was one individual. There were not just Baba people in the hotel, but, various, like, what's his name? The Russian premier. Yeah, there were all kinds of Indian business people, English business people like this. And there was one fellow there, an Indian businessman, and he had a couple of friends who were with him, and he was not involved with Baba at all. And as the Baba people would gather in the big giant lobby, he would make himself known, and with a friend or two, he would, say disrespectful things. He thinks he's the avatar. He thinks he's this and that, but he's not the avatar. And they look at them, they've spent all this money to get here. And he's carrying on like this. And, he's definitely, yes, they've wasted their time and they've wasted their money. And this is going on. So here I am, I'm sitting under the pond, in the pandal, looking, and there's an endless line of people coming to walk before Meher Baba, just to see him. And, you know, there's some people he puts special attention on, and, you know, gives something to this one, so that his attention is focused on lovers as they come past, mostly Indians, all of them. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at, oh, I can't believe it, there's the Indian businessman. And he's in line. And he comes up and he's just about to get right in front of Baba. And he's looking like this. And Baba, just as his turn comes, a mandali or somebody comes to Baba with something important, and Baba turns away. Just as and then one of the helpers, you must move on. So he moves on and doesn't get even a glance from Baba. So that evening after dinner, there he is in the hotel. All the Baba people are there. He says, I had the opportunity to be there today, and I can tell you one thing. I observed him, I watched him, he's no different from you and me. Nothing. No, he's just like you, just like me. So they are wasting their time. But Baba is only attracted to love. So that was too bad for him. Anyone wish to say anything or ask anything? Yes.
Tom, in 2 or 3 sentences, could you explain to us the meaning of God speaks? There's a story behind that, isn't there?
Oh, the essence of God speaks. Well, I'll tell you, Baba asked me that very question. Remember? He asked me that question in 1962 when I saw him privately before the East-West gathering. He said to me, could you sum up for me, which of my works have you read? And I said, Baba, I think I've read everything that's been translated into English that's been written by or about you. And he said then, have you read God Speaks? And I said, yes, Baba, I've read it 3 times. And he said, could you sum up for me, in a nutshell, the essence of God Speaks? And there was a rumble amongst the mandali over there, about 20 mandali. And I said, it just came out of me, there was no effort. I said, the whole of creation exists so that the soul can find its way back. I was about to say God, but then to me, he was God in human form. The whole of creation exists so that the soul can find its way back to you. And he seemed very, very happy with that, very pleased with that. So does that satisfy? Yeah, okay.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us for this 3rd part of diving into Tom's book, which very happily is at the press and being, from what I understand, printed and bound as we speak. So we'll be having a real birth of a book soon. And hope you enjoyed these little clips and readings and snippets. So it's wonderful to see all of you here today. Thank you for joining me, and Tom, wherever he is.
Thank you, Cathy. Jai Baba. I'm excited to read the book.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
So excited.
Yeah.
Jai
So
Baba.
Jay, Bob, and Kathy, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time, bringing all this to us, Kathy.
One more next week. We'll have our last chapters, and by then we may even have a book. Okay. Lots
Exciting.
of love, Jay, Baba.
Hey, Baba.
Yes.